bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, all you Fadernauts. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? It's Fade to Black. Fired up. It's an Anunnaki night right here in Burbank. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Wednesday, October 7th. 280 days into the new year, 85 days left. We're live from the City of Angel Studios right here in downtown Burbank, California. That's right, COA Vapor. Makers of the Fade to Black e-juice. It's called Fader Loops. Vaping it right now all over this microphone. Just go to the COA banner at jimmychurchradio.com. You can use the promo code JimmyLive. That's Jimmy, L-I-V-E, Jimmy Live, for the Fadernaut special, just for you. That's 25% off your order. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR and the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet, I'm your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Let's get this show moving right along. Tonight we have Alex Teplish, author, and his new book. It's called In the Beginning, The Epic of the Anunnaki. The call-in number is 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. Before the show today, Alex is like, hey, man, can we take some calls? Yeah, we can take some calls, Alex, of course. Let's see. Absolutely. So Alex wants to take some calls. So there you go, 323-825-5045. You can Skype in Fade to Black 14. Yeah, right before the show, for the last month, I just can't put this book down. And the book, you can go to, I think the website is inthebeginningthebook.com. I do believe, let me just check really quick. I think it's In the Beginning, and just let me check this out. Click, click, click. Yes, inthebeginningthebook.com. And go look at the website. Go look at Alex's website, and that is what this artwork, there's plenty of galleries here and stuff. Go check it out. That's what this book is, man. I can't just put it down. It's just fun to look at. The artwork is amazing. We'll be talking about that tonight. We haven't had an Anunnaki night in a while. So I'm excited. There's nothing like this kind of discussion. That's what this show is all about. All right. And so let's get the show cracking. Let's get moving right along. Alex will be with us at the bottom of the hour. And he's from Ukraine. He's actually from Odessa, and immigrated to the United States, landed over in New York City, where he'll be where he's at now, and the conversation tonight. But and then got into this world, and it's the book. When you go to the website and look at the artwork and see how it's done, it's a labor of love, and it's really, really, really well done. Awesome stuff. So that's it. An Anunnaki night tonight. I wanted to. Oh, yeah. Oh man, the updates that we had to do on the commercials. A couple of things, here and there. We spent all day today fixing the commercials. Just couldn't take it anymore. So all that stuff, got all that done, and you'll hear it. It's like, okay, all right. It was procrastination, right? I don't know about you guys, but one of the things that I have a bad habit of, I love to do, is just procrastinate. There is so much to do every single day. Get done, move, go. There's so much to do. And the stuff that I know that needs to get done, it's like, oh, man, okay, just one more day. Just one more day. Well, you know what? Today was the last day for that stuff. That was it. And I'm just thinking, Studio Dome, and their price wars and trying to do the best out there is going to end up changing things again. I know it. So, whatever. So anyway, we got all that done. And with that, the reason why I'm mentioning that is Alien Snowfest. There is, which is February 5th through the 7th up in Big Bear, 2016, Big Bear. There's an early bird special right now for October, just running for October, $179 for a full weekend pass. That's right. And Craig Campobasso and his film, An Alien at the Pentagon, Stranger at the Pentagon, Alien at the Pentagon, well, same thing. A Stranger at the Pentagon has been added to the bill. So there you go. So now it's, it's George Norrie and Tom and Linda Moulton Howe and Jason Martell, Stan Freeman, Micah Hanks, Mike Barrow, Richard Dolan, Chase Kletsky, myself, and Craig Campobasso. That is a no-filler lineup. And so for the month of October, all you have to do, just go to jimmychurchradio.com. You can click on it right there. There it is, Alien Snowfest. Head over to the website, tickets and information and hotels and everything else. Get it done now. It is going to be snow season up there, and everything is booked up. So just get your rooms, get your stuff, get everything straightened out now. All right. I do have skis over at the house too, so maybe we'll get some skiing, and I would love to get some skiing. And do you ski? Big Bear's the place to do it. I'm telling you right now. Okay. All right, let's go. Let's get this show cracking. Let's do it. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the Sandbox. Sandbox is on fire tonight. What is going on? I swear I missed something. And I just said to Walter, I haven't seen. I mean, it's always busy, but man alive, you guys are. Okay, I got to concentrate. I could just sit here and just read Twitter all night long. So there you go. Thank you, Walter. That's a retweet. I'll get that up there right now. Boom, done. Faded Black is giving away free tickets to Alien Snowfest. Oh, no. Yeah, that's good, Walter. That's good. I'm going to send you a bill. Yeah, we should do that. We could probably arrange that. I could probably arrange that. Trevor is probably listening to this show right now. Trevor, text me right now during the show. We'll give away some tickets. All right. Let's get the show cracking, because today, one of my favorites, Radiohead's frontman Tom York is 47 years old. And that song, Creep, when that thing comes on the old radio, that thing goes to 11. That's it. That's it. Tom York. That's all you got to say. Tom York. Creep. Done. Radiohead. 47 years old. Johnny Cougar Mellencamp today is 64. Growing up in Indy, Johnny Cougar, who's from, like Seymour and Bloomington, down south, But his band, it wasn't John Mellencamp. It wasn't even Johnny Cougar Mellencamp. His band was called Johnny Cougar and the Zone. That's what it was. I even saw Johnny Cougar and the Zone open up for the Kinks at the Indianapolis Convention Center. Yes, I did. Johnny Cougar and the Zone. I could tell some Johnny Cougar stories. Okay. And John Bon Jovi, his drummer, Tico Torres, today is 62. You know, the band with no bass player, John Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi. Yo-Yo Ma is 60. And singer Tony Braxton is 48. Tony Braxton has sold over 66 million records. She's now a member of the Illuminati. She is 48 years old. I'm just kidding. That's just a joke. But let's light up Twitter before the break. I had to do it. I was thinking about this today. You got John Mellencamp, a guy, you know, who can't sing. And then you've got John Bon Jovi, another guy that can't sing. So I was just like, these guys pull the wool over everybody's eyes. Yeah, the songs are good. Yeah, they're great anthems and everything, but neither of these guys can sing, right? Right. We know that, right? I'll admit it. I'll say it right now. But between John Mellencamp and John Bon Jovi, who's the better singer? Twitter, light it up right now. I want to know. I was going to say, who's worse between the two? That wouldn't be fair. So let's just go with, who's the better singer between the two non-singers? John Mellencamp or John Bon Jovi? And I realize I just am inflamed. But you know what? I know. I'm a fan of both. But the point is, I'll say it. Neither of them can sing. Neither of them. Both are better than Joe Cocker, Mark Dunbar. I love doing this show. Don't forget, the word of the month is spoon. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Alex Teplish is here. His new book, In the Beginning, The Epic of the Anunnaki. I'll be back right after this short break with all of the news that you know absolutely nothing about. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fader-Knots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris.
What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
That's right, Fade to Black. Richie Sambora is the singer for John Bon Jovi. Most people don't know that. Those in the know why Richie Sambora makes the big bucks. He drives that car, man. Bon Jovi will tell you that himself. All right. See, that's what's cool about this show. We can talk about music. We can talk about movies. We can talk about culture and cool things that we grew up with, everything, and just throw in a little Anunnaki for good measure. That's what this show is all about. Michael Anderson just says, slippery when wet. Help me lose my virginity. Yes, you and the other half of the United States. Michael, I appreciate your candor and honesty. Oh, man. Okay. Where am I on this day in history? I knew I was going to, between Mellencamp and Bon Jovi, I knew I was going to touch, but it's the truth. We know it. Come on. All right. On this day in history, in 2001, the U.S.-led attack and invasion on Afghanistan begins. And we are still there. 2015. Unbelievable. And you think about it. Yeah, that's right. It's October 7th and 9/11, and that's, bam. And I was thinking today, I didn't realize, but man, we didn't waste any time. It was less than a month later. Who is this? Jimmy Psycho Experiment? The Jimmy Psycho. Who tweeted this? Who did? Jack. That's funny stuff. That gets a retweet. Follows on Twitter at JChurchRadio. He just tweeted out a picture of this band of aliens, and they're up on stage rocking it. Looks like, hold on, let me look here. We got some congas. We got Fender jazz bass. Looks like we got some type of keyboard player with some triggers going on. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. I wonder what that is. We have any audio on these guys? The Jimmy Psycho Experiment? That's pretty cool. Send me some audio on that. Fader facts. Some Finland scuba divers don't wear ankle weights. They don't. You know why? So they can walk upside down on ice-covered lakes. That is a Fader fact, and that's why you come to this show every single day. All the news that you know nothing about. Yeah, Syria is out of control, sharply escalating its role in Syria. Today, the Russian military launched medium-range missiles from nearly 1,000 miles away. The volley was launched from Russian warships in the Caspian Sea to strike targets in Syria. 26 sea-based cruise missiles. Oh, man. And in a weird way, I'm all for it. But the new Russian airstrikes came amid reports of an expanding ground offensive by pro-government forces in Syria, which has taken place with Russian airplanes operating in western Syria. That offensive will include the Syrian army, Hezbollah forces on the ground, and Russia in the air, apparently all coordinated by Iran. Talking about this last night with Jay Widener, man, it just seems like it's spinning out of control. But why, we have our planes in the air there. But I started thinking about that. Why haven't we just been lobbing cruise missiles at ISIS? No pilots, nobody in harm's way, just by the thousands, just lob them over. So anyway, Russia today, 26 cruise missiles. That's one of the scariest things. If you're the enemy and you're getting hit by cruise missiles, you just lay down, put the guns down, and go fight another day. That's what you do. That's what I would do. I mean, that would just freak me out of my mind. A new type of space tourism is set to lift off 2 years from now, but this is without a rocket. Arizona-based Worldview Enterprises aims to start launching paying customers to the stratosphere in 2017 in a balloon. It's $75,000 per seat. Passengers will spend 2 hours at an altitude of 100,000 feet. Yes, you'll be able to see space, the blackness of it all, and the curvature of the earth. $75,000. Hoofa. I guess Jay-Z and Beyonce, first ones up. They'll shoot a music video up there or something. New research has confirmed that a 48 million year old horse, yes, well preserved, was discovered in Germany and pregnant. Its fetus still intact with soft tissues. Yes, the announcement of the find occurred at last year's Society of Vertebrate Paleontology at their meeting, but the new study confirms that the preserved soft tissues, which include the mother's placenta and other stuff, represent the earliest fossil record of the uterine system of such an animal intact. The first one 48 million years ago. The findings are published in the latest issue of the journal PLOS One. That's PLOS, not PLUS. PLOS One. On a haunting, contaminated landscape devoid of everything, I'm talking about Chernobyl, animals are now thriving. Listen to this. A new study on wildlife populations in the Chernobyl exclusion zone itself. They're now saying there are animals and wildlife everywhere. In 1986, Chernobyl was the site of the big nuclear reactor accident, the radiation from which caused the displacement of human life from the area for 1,000 square miles. Only animals were left to roam in the area. Today, a multi-university study finds the exclusion zone has abundant deer, roe deer, red deer, elk, wild boar, so many that researchers say the numbers rival all of the nature preserves in the region that are not contaminated. And wolves, are you ready? Are 7 times more populous than anywhere else in Chernobyl. 7 times. Now, they've got glowing red eyes. They've got wings. They weigh 8,000 pounds. But yes, it's crazy. They can't explain it. I was looking through the photographs today, the images. There's deer just running around everywhere. Wild boar everywhere. It's out of control. It's that radioactive grass. Right now, NASA is building a monster rocket to shuttle astronauts to Mars. It's called the Space Launch System, or the SLS. I've talked about it many times on the show. When finished, this rocket will be able to launch up to 2.16 million pounds into space. NASA will use 4 RS-25 engines, along with 2 rocket boosters, to get the SLS from the ground to space on its way to Mars. Combined, the engines and boosters will make the SLS the most powerful rocket ever built. But, check this, the engines once powered the space shuttles. That's right. NASA is recycling space shuttle engines. A team from Israel called Spacial has signed a contract to launch its robotic lunar lander toward the moon aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket in the second half of 2017. Space eel, that's space IL, space Israel, space eel, is therefore a strong contender to win the $20 million top prize in the Google Lunar X. California-based Moon Express announced its own launch deal with the spaceflight company Rocket Lab last week, and Pittsburgh-based Astrobotic signed a contract with SpaceX back in 2011. $20 million for the top prize. Question is, how much are they spending to get it there? But you know what? You get the trophy, right? Everybody's a winner. A group of suspected Iranian hackers are using a sophisticated network of fake LinkedIn profiles. Yes, they're using them to spy on unsuspecting targets worldwide, including the U.S. I knew it. LinkedIn always bothered me. The fake personas fell into two groups. One said that were fully developed profiles posing as recruiters for major worldwide government contractors and international corporations. It seems like that's all you ever really get on LinkedIn. And another set that were less developed and designed to lend legitimacy to primary accounts through endorsements and connections. But Dell uncovered this, Dell Computer. Dell's Secure Works unit identified the group behind the profiles as TG2889. That's the name. And researchers said that there was strong evidence it's operating out of Iran. The hackers employed a number of companies matched to computer domains used in attacks that had previously been attributed to cyber attackers from Iran. And the spread of targets in the Middle East, Arab states, North Africa, and the U.S. would be consistent with an Iranian source. Did everybody catch Matt Drudge on Alex Jones? Anybody check that out? If you haven't, go and do it. Matt Drudge, very rare interview. You know, you have to read the guy. Interview on Alex Jones today, in which he totally lashed Hillary Clinton, mainstream media, and American culture in the digital age. It was rambling, but go and listen to it. Okay? Judge went off, though, and I grabbed a couple of snippets. And one of the things he said, and I'm quoting here, the sickness of the American people, he said, that were forfeiting individual thought and becoming slaves to internet companies. Matt Drudge on Alex Jones. Go check it out. Very, very rare situation there. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Alex Teplish. In the beginning, the epic of the Anunnaki. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Be back right after this short break. This is Bespoke Radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. We'll be back with Alex Teplish right after this. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Today, everybody, the Fadernauts and planet Earth is vaping, and I'm very proud to announce our very own e-juice. When we were approached by City of Angels Vapor about Fade to Black e-juice, I wanted to make sure that it was the very best, and that the flavors were something that I could create myself, and we did just that. Introducing Fade to Black Fader Loops. This will take you right back to Saturday morning cartoons and your favorite bowl of fruity, loopy cereal. Just click on the banner or go to www.coavapor.com. Enter the promo code JimmyLive. That's Jimmy, L-I-V-E, for the Fadernaut special. The website, coavapor.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you, and your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
All right, you Fadernauts. Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52mm main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net anywhere. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. We got Alex Teplish in the batter's box. I just tweeted out, I'm tweeting out during the commercials, can't help myself. Tweeted out Alex's website in the beginning, thebook.com. So the links are there. Go check out the galleries. We're going to be talking about this tonight. And you'll see why I am so impressed. Alex Teplish was born in Odessa, Ukraine, and grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Since an early age, he has had a science, astronomy, extraterrestrial, life science, science fiction, and comic book fascination. There was also another very inquisitive side of Alex that found interest in art, drawing, history, religions, cultures, and other ancient stories. A graduate of Stony Brook University, Teplish has worked diligently for over 18 years to become a leading expert in web technologies, graphic design, and digital marketing. His work in graphic design has also contributed to his recent project. It is the graphic novel In the Beginning, the Epic of the Anunnaki, which explores the theories of creation as told in the book of Genesis, but with an ancient extraterrestrial influence. His website is inthebeginningthebook.com. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Alex Teplish. Alex, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me tonight.
Alex, welcome to the program. And I do this disclaimer with every first-time guest, and so you get to do it. You get the disclaimer tonight, which is it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation between friends. Wherever we start, we start. Where we end, but we'll end as friends. Are you ready?
Sure am.
All right, Alex. So take us back. Before we get into the book, and again, I haven't been able to put it down for weeks now, and right up to the start of the show, I have it here in the studio, and I'm just looking at it. I can't put it down. But before we get to that, let's back up a little bit. You were born in Ukraine. You were born in Odessa. And so take us back there. You eventually made it over. You immigrated to the United States with your family to Brooklyn. But what was it like growing up in the Ukraine? And was there an influence from your family about all things, ET and paranormal and fringe science?
Yeah, well, I didn't really grow up in Ukraine. I came to the United States when I was 2 years old.
Okay.
with my family. My parents and grandparents brought me over here, and it was definitely, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories from them and the family and people I've known my whole life that came from that area. Definitely a different type of lifestyle then, especially back when it was the USSR, and that was the point when we left. It was still the USSR.
And what year was that?
We came to the United States in 1978.
Oh, okay. So yeah, completely before the revolution and all of that craziness.
Right.
So, and why did they decide to come to the United States? And why? Why Brooklyn?
Well, there's an area in Brooklyn that we lived near called Little Odessa, which is basically where most of the immigrants from Odessa, Ukraine, went in the mid 70s and early 80s. That was the first big wave of Russian Jews leaving the USSR. That was basically most of the Russian Jews that came to the United States in the 70s, 80s, and 90s came as refugee status. There was a lot of anti-Semitism going on there, a lot of discrimination, even less opportunities. Most people didn't have opportunities, but even less opportunities if people knew that you were Jewish. And that was basically they weren't allowed to explore their heritage, their religion. Not that anyone was religious at that point in the USSR. The USSR prevented that. But basically, for those and many other reasons, they decided to immigrate to the United States for opportunity.
And growing up in Little Odessa, was it the classic situation where everybody spoke Russian in the neighborhood? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you had that little closed community of immigrants, and the culture was preserved.
I would definitely say the culture was preserved. It was actually the second wave of immigration in the late 80s and early 90s when there was a large amount of Russian-speaking people that came to Brooklyn, New York. When I came, it was a lot less, and we lived amongst other cultures. There was a lot of Italians in Brooklyn at that time.
Yep.
And we lived together and without any issues. I mean, definitely in New York alone, I mean, there's all different communities for various cultures and ethnicities, and some people mix and some people stay with their own culture. I had an opportunity to meet people from all different cultures, but at the same time, because of my parents and family that were older and didn't adapt to the language that quick, I retained my Russian-speaking abilities as well.
Well, we have that out here in Los Angeles, too. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Mexican, Russian, Armenian. There are pockets here where if that's what you want to do, you don't have to speak English at all, ever. You can just hang and not ever need to speak English because of where you're living. And I'm sure it was the same thing in spots of Brooklyn too. How did were your parents just dancing all the time? I mean, there must have been a big shock going from Odessa to Manhattan, to New York City, where there's opportunity, but there's also everything else that goes along with it. The amazing food, restaurants, nightlife. It's a 24-hour city, and if that's what you're looking for, they just must have been happy.
Oh yeah, they were. I mean, at first they were afraid. They came here not knowing what to look forward to, just based on what they heard, rumors.
Right.
And in fact, with the Iron Curtain, there was very little information coming in of what life was like here. The propaganda in the USSR was that there's a lot of crime and murder, and that's what they were coming here for, and that's why many people were afraid. But they came here with nothing, with practically any money in their pockets. They were allowed to leave with very little possessions. In fact, as they were leaving, the customs officials would search them, and any jewelry they would basically take away or make them bribe them with it just to let them go.
Right.
So it was tough to get out. And then when they arrived, they didn't speak the language. They didn't have jobs. took a while, but they set themselves up and Americanized and set up careers and everything. They were lucky to come young enough to be able to do that.
I mean, do they laugh now? They got here and there were no dead bodies in the streets and gang activity and everything that the Russian propaganda is out there for before the revolution. You get here and do they laugh about it now? I'm sure they do.
They do, but at the same time, New York in the 80s was, yeah. So they got to see some of that, what people were mentioning.
I'll tell you a funny story. I'm going to make this really quick because it's about you, Alex, not about me. But in 1988, 89, 88, I go to Times Square for the first time, and I'm with some friends. And we're walking around. About midnight, we left our hotel. And we were like, we got to go to Times Square. We got to go. So we walked down to Times Square and doing our thing. And this cop comes up to us. I think it was 2 or 3 cops, actually, NYPD, comes up to us and goes, hey, man, where are you guys from? Hey, we're from L.A. And he goes, listen, man, where are you staying? And we're like, we're over here at this hotel. And he goes, go right now. We're like, what do you mean? And he goes, turn around. See those guys right there? They're about to rob you. Right? And it was so funny. We turned around and looked, and there was a gang that was shadowing us, and we were oblivious to all of it. And yeah, Times Square in 1988 is not Times Square of 2015 or 2000 or 1995. They've really changed it. You're absolutely 100% correct on that one. And I look back how stupid we were. We were inches away from a really bad situation. But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Now, what about your parents? So you're here and, you're starting to get into science fiction and science and extraterrestrial life. Were your parents influenced by that too as well?
My father was definitely into it. I remember as a child we used to watch some of those UFO documentaries they used to have on television. I would say he got me into the theories overall. He wasn't familiar with the ancient astronaut theories, but just the phenomenon, the possibilities of extraterrestrial life, especially visiting Earth, definitely got me intrigued. As well as a kid, I was into comic books and science fiction movies, so that definitely pulled me into that world even more.
And what did they think about your book?
They definitely appreciate it, and I think it's a little bit much for them because they haven't really researched it like I have or many of the other people that are into the subject, but they completely get it, and they find it very plausible.
Now, you went on to Stony Brook University. Did you, at that point at Stony Brook, were you studying history? Did you do any archaeology? And were you able to look at not only the Anunnaki, but, how Sitchin was coming into play and ancient Egypt and lost civilizations? Did you do any of that at Stony Brook?
I wouldn't say that I did it at the school itself. I'm actually majored in business management, and but that was around the time when the internet was developed, and that's when I started to do my own research, and I finally had the access to all this information. And then once I started to discover bits and pieces of it on the internet, the early internet, I started ordering the books and basically reading, absorbing as much information as I could on the subject.
Now, so how did you discover Sitchin?
So I was researching just extraterrestrials and biblical stories and the combination of the two, and that's when it brought me to the books of Sitchin, the Earth Chronicles.
And which one did you read first?
I tried to read them in order, but I did read the 12th Planet first.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I think most of us that jump into the Sitchin camp start at the 12th Planet and then work our way around from there. Mm-hmm. So what did that book mean to you?
Well, it finally, a lot of things started to make sense, and the amount of detail that he paid attention to, translations and world travels and all these different sites, The book read like a textbook, not like a fiction book or a speculative book. It really, he really went into detail, and I was fascinated by it. And I really started to realize this makes a lot of sense. This makes more sense than anything I've ever heard before.
And when you say makes sense, are you talking about personally or with other research that you were compiling? Were you connecting the dots in that fashion, or was this a religious thing?
Well, it kind of touched on my religious background, definitely. And I started off with Sitchin's books alone, and then eventually started to read all the other books and all the other subjects out there, not just from an extraterrestrial point of view, but on the ancient history side and the various ancient civilizations and things like that. But it does definitely go back to a religious background that I come from. My family didn't practice religion, but when I first came to the United States, because of these rumors about all the crime and everything, my parents sent me to a yeshiva, which is a religious Jewish school. And that's when I was first exposed to all the biblical stories. My parents didn't know them, and they didn't know much about it growing up in the USSR. So when I started hearing all these stories, I knew that my family didn't really believe them to be literal, but so many other people did, and I wondered how can so many people for thousands of years continue to believe these stories that there's no proof of, yet there's so many different writings on these subjects. And when I finally read Sitchin's books, it kind of connected the dots and brought things into perspective.
And how so? When you say it started to make sense, there was an epiphany moment. Something happened first, which led to something else. Take me to that moment. What was it?
Well, a lot of these stories in the Old Testament are very fantastic and unbelievable. If you go and tell someone who never heard of these things before, who didn't grow up with a religious background, and they would never believe it. They would say these are fairy tales. Yet so many people are devoted to these stories and have passed them down letter by letter for thousands of years. So when I finally read Sitchin's books, a lot of the explanations behind some of these stories started to make sense. Who was talking when they talked about the creation of mankind, and why was God portrayed with human characteristics, and why would God refer to himself as in the plural form? And there was so many other anomalies that were in the Old Testament that Sitchin explains in his collection of books.
And I have to say, were you keeping this to yourself? Did you have a network of friends around you? Would you talk to your family about this, or were you you didn't want to be labeled as a little crazy? So were you keeping it to yourself?
I wouldn't say that I was broadcasting it, but at the same time, I really didn't have anybody to hide it from. I didn't have people who would judge me on that level. I didn't have anybody that was a fundamental religious person around me. So, I would share bits and pieces with people I knew. None of my friends really were into the subject as much as I was. So I just kind of kept to myself, did my research, but occasionally would talk about it with some friends. And eventually I did pull a few friends into the subject, and they got intrigued as well.
Now, I have to ask you, did you go to the rabbi? Did you ever go and go, hey, man, check this out. This guy Sitchin says, what do you think about this? Were you able to do that and get his opinion?
Well, because I didn't really belong to a synagogue or a Jewish community, so I didn't really have a rabbi that I would go to talk about that. But since then, I have met several rabbis, and one or two of them have said that it is a possibility. And I myself always say that the theory itself does not negate an omnipotent being, an omnipotent God from existing. One does not rule out the other.
Right.
So, although the stories may have been misunderstood, the overall concept of omnipotent being is not ruled out.
Well, and so with your position on this, I want to explore this before we get to a break, which will be in a few minutes. Now that you've read Sitchin and other research too as well, Sitchin isn't the end-all be-all, but now that you've done this research, what do you think about the beginning of everything? Is it a religious beginning, or do you think that the all-knowing creator could just be an ET figure, or is it all just by chance and we're sitting along a Darwinian magical moment where we just evolved from nothing? I want to say germs on crystals in a lake somewhere magically turned into DNA one day.
Yeah, I actually think it's a combination of all of them. I always try to connect everything to science. So science comes first. But I think that there's many layers to reality. I definitely think there's a spiritual layer that can be connected to science. We just haven't discovered it yet. We haven't discovered those connections. I think that many religions and spiritual beliefs touch on those connections, and in some places they're right, in some places they're wrong. And I think as you peel each layer, you get to a more shallow level. So the shallowest level would be just what we're told in the mainstream, what the media portrays to people, what the news talks about, and then there's deeper things behind everything. There's deeper meanings, and the omnipotent being is a combination of all consciousness, of basically a combined consciousness that constantly creates, and that's all it does. And it just creates, and the pieces that it creates interact with one another and basically create this endless feedback loop.
So ancient civilizations and cultures, you're suggesting, I don't want to give the book away either, but what you're suggesting is they didn't have any other choice but to call this magnificent knowledge and everything that was happening God.
Right. So, everybody, the different groups explain it in different ways. Mm-hmm. But I think that the underlying connections, the commonalities of the beliefs is closer to the truth. And the differences is basically their experiences, their interpretations of what they just couldn't understand or couldn't explain in their words. But I definitely think that there were advanced civilizations in ancient history that knew a lot more, and some of that knowledge was retained and some of it was lost.
That's an interesting take. And were you able to connect that also to Persian and heading further east into the Asian empires and also over to maybe South America and around the globe?
Yes, definitely. There's one of the most common ancient stories is the flood myth, which we label it as a myth these days, but there's scientific evidence that there was major flooding around the world, different points of time, but there was a common time when the Ice Age was ending, about 12,000 years ago, and there was a lot of earthly calamities happening at that time, and many civilizations from different parts of the world with no connection to one another talk about these things. So that's one of the commonalities that I believe to be true because of so many people talk about it.
It's happening. It happened this past weekend. If you think, if you think about it, how did you? Really quick before we head into the break, did you guys get affected at all by Joaquin and water up in Manhattan?
No, I'm actually on Long Island now. I used to live in Brooklyn, but luckily we were spared this time. I got hit. My whole area got hit hard by Sandy.
Yes.
I thought that this would be a repeat. I actually have a whole palette of books that I was afraid for, but luckily we got spared. But unfortunately, other parts like South Carolina didn't.
Yeah,
there's a lot. They experienced what New York experienced during Sandy.
It's tragic, and I don't want to make light of it at all. But I'll say this: when we talk about biblical floods and catastrophes, if you think about it, if you were an ancient civilization thousands of years ago, where you can't get in your car, you've only got your feet, right? And something like that rolls through, it's the end of the world. You know what I mean? And if you lived in Charleston, South Carolina, 6,000 years ago, you would have wrote that. That would be a story that you would have handed down for generations. It only makes sense, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah. Definitely.
So now, as we're going to head into the break, and what I want to start to discuss is some of the technical sides of the book and your attention to detail with art. Was that your main focus in telling the story?
Well, I definitely wanted to visualize the story. It actually goes back to a screenplay that I wrote. I wrote this as a screenplay originally, and that is the goal of the project, is to eventually either have a movie or a series created around this topic. So at some point, I decided to adapt the screenplay into a graphic novel, and I wanted it to be realistic. I wanted for people to take these nonfiction theories and visualize them and see how it may have looked if it did happen.
And how did you approach with the artists and the colorists and stuff that were involved with it? Was this something that you had because it's visually from a certain, it's consistent, it's from a certain vision. Was this the vision that you had in mind the whole time, the way this end result? Because it's just so amazing to look at.
Yeah, thank you. I looked for artists that were talented based on their portfolios. I looked all around the world for artists. I gave some artists a try that didn't necessarily work out. It wasn't the style that I was looking for. I wanted it to be realistic. I didn't want it to have a cartoony or superhero look because that wasn't the theme I was going for. I ended up hiring 2 illustrators. One of them from Philippines, Edwin Chavez, and another one from Beijing, Shipeng Li. And they were the illustrators. And then my colorists were from Romania. They were a team out of Romania called Divio Media.
Would you change anything now? Are you happy with it?
I'm definitely happy with it, but you like any other project, you learn from your experience, and you always want to improve on it. So I definitely have ideas on improvements in the future, but I'm pleased with my this first project.
It's absolutely stunning to look at, and everybody, you can just go to Alex's website, inthebeginningthebook.com. I tweeted out. Oh, are you on Twitter?
I am. I don't really use Twitter as much as I do with Facebook. I just find that Facebook's a lot more flexible. And I have a Facebook page where I not only share sneak peeks and information about the book, but I'm constantly sharing research and articles and try to keep it to be related to mainstream science as much as possible and not too many tabloid sites that just are clickbait. I try to keep it as close to scientific and archaeological research as possible.
Yeah, sure. And my only complaint about the book, I wanted it to just keep going. I just want you look at it and you just know it's an insane amount of work that was put into this, and I am just being a little selfish here. It's just amazing. Just go to inthebeginningthebook.com. We're going to take a break. Alex has got a gallery there that you can browse through during the show tonight. Let's take a quick break. Tonight, Alex Teplish is with us, and his new book, which is In the Beginning, The Epic of the Anunnaki. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Alex Teplish when we come back. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Back, Fade to Black. Tonight we have Alex Teplish with us, his new book, In the Beginning, The Epic of the Anunnaki. We'll take your calls here in the next segment, 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. Alex, I'm watching Twitter here, and inevitably this was going to be the first question out. And so let's just go there right now. Ask Alex if he thinks Nibiru will get close to Earth in 2016.
Well, it's hard to say. There's so many different calculations. I think that if it was getting closer to, in 2016, then we would already know about it. It could be getting closer, but I don't think that it's close enough for us to detect yet. There's too many independent astronomers out there. There is research that shows that it's possible that it exists, but it's still a distance away from us. It's still very undetectable. So I do think that eventually, when it does get close, it still wouldn't be something that would destroy the planet, or a lot of these rumors that went around about 2012. But it's something that would give the window of opportunity for communication and travel.
Do you follow different researchers out there about where Nibiru is?
So there is a lot of mainstream research that says that there is something out there that is affecting the Kuiper belt objects, the planets in the outer solar system, the comets that we see coming towards our direction, that it is affecting that. And that's the only way that they can explain it with mathematics and astronomy, is that there's a large object out there. And I've shared a lot of that research on my Facebook page as well.
And what about Sitchin's theories about the way the Earth got here, the impacts of different planets and orbits being changed? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that corroborates his theories. He came up with this based on Sumerian language translations and translating these myths into a theory of planetary collision 4 billion years ago. His theory was that Nibiru collided with the primitive Earth, which was called Tiamat, pushed it out of its original orbit, and basically created the Earth and the Moon system that we know of today. Because it pushed it out of that orbit, it would no longer collide. It would no longer be on the same path. But it could affect global weather, comets, So there's still possibilities of calamities.
And what about Nibiru possibly being the asteroid belt that is out there now, and that is the remnants of Nibiru?
Well, that could be the remnants of the pieces that broke off.
Right.
But scientists later corroborated his theory by basically coming out with the same idea that Earth was created by a cataclysmic collision 4 billion years ago. So if the majority of Earth, the planet, survived and continued to thrive and evolve into life, then the planet that collided with it possibly had the same fate. And the early collision is what seeded both planets and created this parallel evolution.
Now, one of the things that the illustrations show in your book, and I'm holding it here, I'm totally distracted. I could just sit here and read this again all night long. Has a definite Egyptian feel to it. And was that intentional?
Yeah, well, I believe that the ancient Egyptian society took a lot of their ideas from even earlier culture, and it goes back to the Sumerians, who had the ziggurats before pyramids, before the Great Pyramid. They had the ziggurats that they built, which were the step pyramids, and that's kind of the theme that I was going for there.
Now, what I want you to do for the very small part of our audience that is not familiar with the Anunnaki and the subject that we're talking about, let's start from the beginning. Who were the Anunnaki? Why were they here? What were they doing here? And let's kind of start there and how you wove that into the story.
Sure. So the Sumerian civilization, which was the first known civilization to have writing and a fully established society in what is now known as Iraq, they existed approximately 6,000-7,000 years ago. And they wrote about much of their knowledge coming from the gods, who were known as the Anunnaki. Now, they didn't refer to gods like the current religions do, as an omnipotent being or as all-powerful. They referred to them as flesh and blood beings, as humanoids with names and personalities and different roles and jobs within their own structure. So the Sumerians wrote various stories. Enuma Elish is one of them. Atrahasis is another one. And within these stories, they talk about the creation of mankind. They talk about how their own workers began to rebel, and they created mankind to basically serve them and do the hard work for them, especially establishing life on Earth. That's what it's been translated, not only by ancient astronaut theorists like Sitchin, but mainstream Sumeriologists that have translated this writing. So they wrote about that. They were the first known civilization to have advanced mathematics and astronomy. And it seems like they came out of nowhere, because there's no other. I mean, there are known establishments of people, but not to such a complex level with writing and math and science that they had.
It seems to me that, and I talk about this quite a bit, but everybody needs to be taught. Everything needs to be taught. Nothing appears out of nowhere. In other words, you teach your pet tricks, right? Everything is taught. We are taught. We are taught by teachers, and it goes back and back. And when it comes to the Sumerians, everything seemed to have happened at one time, where there is no other explanation except what they say. You know what I mean? They were taught this. Mathematics and accounting systems and farming and the wheel and everything, all of this advanced stuff just didn't happen. They didn't think it up. They were shown this. And why can't we just accept that what they wrote about was the truth? And that's they were taught this from somebody else. And we need to try to accept that today. Why Why can't historians just accept what the Sumerians wrote instead of writing it off as, fiction, fantasy, a good novel writing?
Yep. And in fact, in recent history, there's been a phenomenon called cargo cults.
Yes.
And these are new religions, cults or myths that were formed just within the last 50 to 100 years that experienced modern man. They one popular one is in the Polynesian areas. And they experienced the American soldiers coming there, basically dropping off cargo, flying their planes, and they didn't have such technology. They lived in a more primitive way, so to speak. So they began to worship these soldiers and the cargo that they brought and traded with them. And basically, these soldiers would give them gifts to allow them to use their land, and they started to worship these soldiers and their culture. And in fact, there's the one commonly known cult is called John Frum, because they were meeting a lot of men whose name were John, and they were introducing themselves as John Frum and wherever they were from. So that actually became the name of the cult. And to this day, it still exists, and they have a whole mishmash of what they believe, and they actually created replicas of airplanes and other technology that they saw but couldn't explain, using their own trees and rocks and things like that. So it's happening right in front of our eyes, and we can see how in primitive time, in ancient time, thousands of years ago, how another civilization may have done the same thing.
When I look at the cargo cults and I think about what they went through, just living such an isolated life, never seeing any forms of technology. And then one day, planes just show up dropping parachutes full of really cool stuff, right? And then it just stops. And I put myself in their position. It's kind of, you want to feel sorry for them in a way, but I would have done the exact same thing. I would have done anything to try to attract them again. So if that's okay, if we're cool with that, then why wouldn't our attitude be the same throughout history? Not only with the Sumerians, but maybe even with the Egyptians, maybe going back to Göbekli Tepe or any other ancient culture that might have had some type of interaction like this. It's absolutely the only way to look at it.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And the various ancient civilizations talk about going, not just the flood, but going through different calamities. In fact, both the Vedic civilization in India, which existed thousands of years ago, and the Hopis, the Native American Hopis, have a common theory or common belief that we are now going from a fourth world into a fifth, the last one being destroyed by a flood, and the previous worlds having their own calamities, being destroyed by other situations. So a lot of this knowledge is being lost and revived or found all over again.
When we look at Egypt, and the one thing that I'm fascinated with is when I look at Egypt, it doesn't. There are parts of Egypt that don't fit with other parts of Egypt. It just looks older. It looks like it's been there for a long time, and I think that the Egyptians just inherited, what they had, and then modified it and continued to use, different structures, the pyramid specifically and the Sphinx, for their own means, but they didn't know where it came from either. And if we push that all the way back to the Ice Age, then we're looking at another previous civilization before that. And the only answer is, well, we have Atlantis or another lost civilization that, of high technology, or the Anunnaki and what the Sumerians talk about. Is this the correct hypothesis when we look at all of that?
Yes. So the Egyptians built pyramids later on as well, and they could never really replicate what the Great Pyramid, or especially the Sphinx, which has evidence of water and flooding around it, which would have had to have happened 10,000 years ago. Over 10,000 years ago. So there is evidence of it, and what the Egyptians did was basically inherit it, like you said, and add their own hieroglyphics on top of it, kind of like graffiti. And now we interpret it as they built it, or it was theirs. And not to say that they didn't build it. They didn't have a great civilization. They did. But I think that a lot of the knowledge that they had was also inherited from a even older and more ancient civilization. And then even the pre-dynastic Egyptians passed some things down to them.
Do you think today, with what's going on in Syria and Iraq, and now we have Russia involved, is there something going on where ISIS is blowing up ancient, megalithic structures for their own reasons and own excuses? But that part of society, of ancient history, Sumerian, and the valleys, and oh man, if you think about it, the Tigris River and everything else with Mesopotamia is being bombed back into the Stone Age. And is there some kind of intention of blowing up stuff that they don't want us to know about, which could be ties to the Anunnaki or further Sumerian evidence, and they just don't want us to know about this off-world connection?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer that organized religions are a form of control. I'm totally into spirituality and believing in good and moral lessons, but the fundamentalists, especially in the Middle East, have been taken control of, taken advantage of to a point where they may not even realize the real goals of what they're doing. They're just doing it for their own fundamental reasons, but there's a deeper agenda behind it, possibly to cover up this ancient history, which would cause a lot of turmoil in the religious world.
Do you think we have enough of that knowledge uncovered right now?
It's hard to prove. I mean, like I said earlier, there's a lot of layers to what we hear and see. And, if we turn on the news and listen to what we're being told in the newspapers and by mainstream media, I mean, nobody would ever admit to something like that, especially in other countries where propaganda is a lot stronger, like Russia, for example. They really don't talk about this kind of stuff on television, and they laugh at it. They look down on it. They call it pseudoscience or pseudo-archaeology, and that's how many discoveries came out. Originally were humiliated, these people, and then eventually were celebrated as great scientists. So I think that, like I said, there's a lot of layers, and we have to just keep peeling those layers, but at the same time always have some level of doubt and not go too deep and have it take over, because I'm all for conspiracy theories and researching them, but at the same time, you can't believe every conspiracy theory out there because it just takes over and makes people crazy.
Well, you do have a personal connection, being born in the Ukraine and everything that has been going on over there with Crimea and Russia and what their real intentions are, and then we suddenly have this situation unfolding in Syria today. Russia fires 26 cruise missiles into Syria, 1,000, from the Caspian Sea, 1,000 miles away. Where I see that, I react one way, and then there's another thing that says to me, they don't even care what these missiles are blowing up. We're talking about archaeological sites and things that are just the oldest of the old, and we're just lobbing missiles and bombs and blowing up everything. It's just shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a shame to lose ancient sites that haven't even fully been studied yet or explored. And in fact, in that area, the numbers is something like 80% hasn't even been uncovered yet. So it's a shame that we can't explore it further due to the situation. I think that there are many different agendas behind what's going on. For one, I mean, on the top layer, everybody says they're trying to establish peace, and that may be part of the case. But at the same time, they have their interests. But also, Putin comes out looking like a hero to the world.
I was talking about that last night. Well, I remember during the two Gulf Wars that UNESCO's involved in this is a heritage site. You can't bomb here. You can't bomb here. And there were certain spots in Iraq that were off limits. But since then, I don't hear any talk about that at all. UNESCO's not involved. I don't hear them talking to Putin directly. I don't know. And Palmyra is now, leveled, and UNESCO's not involved, and there doesn't seem to be any intention of preserving anything that is going on, anything north of Baghdad, all the way to the Turkish border, north of Syria.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a sad situation. Hopefully, like I said, because so much hasn't been uncovered yet, that it will remain underground until the situation improves and we can eventually uncover the truth.
And do you think that Putin is conscious of what Syria means and what Iraq means before he's going in there? Do you think there is any culture or any heritage situation on his mind?
I think that the overall Russian culture definitely teaches to respect your elders and your own culture and other cultures, and basically learn from history. I think that Putin, being such a powerful man, knows a lot that we might not know, and may not want to destroy these heritage sites. I'm not sure that that's particularly his specific agenda, although there could be people behind the scenes that pulling some strings that we don't know about that may want to destroy, or at least keep the turmoil going so that the exploration is not done.
I want to get back to the book. We could talk about Putin and Syria and our stupid government all night long. It's just so frustrating. I see it every day. I'm turning to the news to see what other disastrous thing is going on over there, because it's such a big part of what we talk about on this show. Mesopotamia and Armenia and Turkey, and it's just sad, and there's nothing that we can do. I just wish we would put our brakes on, pump the brakes on this truck that seems to be out of control, and stop and take a deep breath. I think we could handle all of this a little bit differently. I want to get back to the book. Ann and Pagan just tweeted, so what happened to its satellite moon, Tiamat?
Well, Tiamat was the original planet that had the collision and broke into the pieces. So Earth was the bigger piece, and our moon was a chunk that broke off of that larger planet that eventually coalesced and turned into its own sphere.
Now, how did you cover? I want you to explain. I don't want to give away the book, but how did you cover the mining of gold and the atmosphere on Nibiru?
Right. So I tried to depict the story based on Sitchin's theories. There are others out there who do subscribe to the ancient astronaut theory, but say that there's not enough evidence of gold mining, or that being their main agenda here. And I definitely find that potentially is one of the flaws. But there is evidence that, first of all, every ancient civilization that we know of treasured gold and used it and hoarded it. And the riches were, to this day, we still hoard gold, and all the governments do. So why is it so important? Is it just because it's shiny and it's a shiny rock? But there's other evidence that it has other properties. For example, in medieval churches, they used it for stained glass windows, and they found that when these nanoparticles of gold would be hit by the sun through the stained glass windows, it would actually purify the air in the church. So that's one example, and that's an example of how gold in nanoparticle form can purify air. Then there's a lot of research done with nanoparticles of gold recently for cancer research and for basically cleaning the blood and things like that. So I think that there's a lot of underlying uses that have only been discovered recently, but also known in ancient times. And that's definitely a big part of it. I mean, they came here for that reason. That's the theory. And there is evidence of ancient gold mines in Africa.
Did you go back and do direct research on the translation of the tablets versus Sitchin's translations? Did you go through that kind of painstaking research?
Yeah, well, I did discover a school of thought called Pan-Babylonianism, which was established in the 19th century, way before Sitchin's theories. And they basically said that many of the Sumerian myths have too many similarities to the Old Testament for it to be completely separate pieces of work. So that's something that I tried to tie to and connect these Old Testament stories to a much more ancient civilization and explanation of how it may have taken place.
Which stories?
The story of creation of man, based on the rebellion of the Anunnaki. That's something they wrote about. The story of the creation of the first people, the Tower of Babel, that was mentioned. The story of the flood in the Epic of Gilgamesh, that's a big one. In fact, that flood story is popular in all different civilizations around the world. So these commonalities, although they changed through time and they kind of merged into this spiritual pursuit and became religion, I believe that they were a misunderstanding of something that took place in ancient times. And that's what I try to tie my book into.
With the missing link, the proverbial missing link, 150,000 years ago, man suddenly appears. The Sumerians, go back hundreds of thousands of years too with the Anunnaki story. And then you have the Anunnaki creating clones and man and robot, slave labor to do the work for them. Is that the same tie that you see?
Yeah, and since they spoke about creating man and experimenting with different types of creatures, I basically depicted them creating more primitive forms of humans, like the Neanderthals. And eventually the Neanderthals died out, and they kept upgrading their experiments and eventually reached a point where they created humans, modern man, and they realized that we were no longer an animal. We were no longer something that they can use purely for labor. And that's when they decided to install kingship and teach humans to live on their own and have their own civilizations, but at the same time, control them from behind the scenes through these kings.
Why did they leave?
In the book, I kind of explain that they have, because of Nibiru's elongated orbit, they only have a small window of opportunity when they can travel here. I mean, people think, because they travel through space, they can travel light years or vast distances, but they may not have been that much more advanced than we are now, just slightly more advanced, where they had a window of opportunity to travel, just like we do. We have windows of opportunity to go to explore Mars or other planets, and that's what they had. So they came here and worked here and developed their own small group of their own people here. But at a certain point, they got what they wanted, and they had a window of opportunity to go back. And it's been only 3,000 or so years before we have any, since we had the discussion of these beings. So it seems like their orbit is just so elongated that eventually they will have that window of opportunity again.
Why haven't we been able to detect this orbit? I'm talking about amateur astronomers to find some celestial body out there that is remotely similar to this orbit, something that we can just grab onto and say, aha, here's the possibility.
Well, there have been a lot of amateur astronomers as well as professional astronomers who have done the math and calculated that there's got to be something, a large body out there. They can't see it with the current technology, but they can detect it through doing the math. The way that comets are thrust in our area, and certain other planets recently discovered, planetoid Sedna, the way Uranus and Neptune are positioned, and so on. And basically, based on the math, they say that there has to be something out there that's affecting it, and that it would be potentially Nibiru, or some believe that it's a companion star or a brown dwarf to our own sun, which has its own small set of basically its own mini solar system.
Yeah, there's a gravitational effect that is going on with Neptune and Uranus that could only be affected by another body out there. I totally agree. And it seems like the professional astronomers were talking about a Planet X forever, and then suddenly the conversation just stopped. Are they hiding something?
I don't know if they're hiding something. I think, there could be someone out there who knows more than the mainstream and could be potentially holding it from the public. But I think that there's just not, our technology is not there yet, or the positioning of this companion brown dwarf could be in such a place where it's undetectable at this moment. But there are more and more mainstream articles talking about it. It was spoken about on CNN just about a year and a half ago.
Right.
I actually posted a video of it on my Facebook page. And there's a lot of mainstream astronomers that believe that it's out there. We just haven't discovered it yet.
Have you been following the SOHO satellite images of different objects around SOHO or around the sun, photographed by SOHO?
Yeah, I've seen some of those where they show these enormous objects near the sun, probably bigger than Earth, and they're unexplained.
A couple of them look like Anunnaki birds. Have you seen those? I'm fascinated with it.
I've seen them. I try not to speculate too much. I mean, there's already a lot of speculation within the theory. And, it's like when you look up at a cloud and you could see all types of shapes and things, but anything's possible. I mean, I definitely think that there is a lot of things that have been captured on video and in photos within space that are anomalies, and some may be explainable and some are not.
Sitchin's got a new book coming out. We were talking about that earlier today. Did you reach out to his family when you were researching?
I actually reached, when he was still alive, I attended his lecture in New York. I spoke to him. I communicated with him through writing also. I originally wanted to do a documentary including him, but that never worked out. But I did attend his lectures and spoke with him. I never actually spoke to his family. I tried to reach out to one or two people, but I think maybe it was too close to his death and they just weren't doing much. And only in the last couple of years have they started to compile his notes and just recently released this new book, which I look forward to reading.
Yeah, me too. It's supposed to be behind the scenes. I haven't gotten the book yet. It is in transit to the studio here. I haven't gotten it yet. But tell me about your conversations with Sitchin. What were you able to talk about, and what did you ask him?
Well, I was originally trying to put together a documentary so that we can create. This was way before Ancient Aliens or any of these shows, and the only documentaries out there were mostly UFO documentaries, modern UFO documentaries, and I wanted to really explore the ancient astronaut theory. So communicated through some letters back and forth. I didn't really have the budget at the time to put something like that together, and we parted ways. But I also got to meet him in New York and listen to his interpretations and his lectures, and it really intrigued me to take the subject further.
I'm just going through Twitter. There are so many questions that are lining up here. And I'm going to do that on the next break and try to compile some of this stuff. But when we look at today and we hear the talk of reptilian cultures, different races controlling the Earth today. Is it anything left over from the Anunnaki? Do you subscribe to that thought that we are in contact today, and that some of the things that are happening right now on this planet are influenced by ET?
Well, I think one of the things that I believe in is that it is practically impossible that there is no other intelligent life even more advanced than we are, way more advanced than we are in the universe. I find that impossible, that it doesn't exist. So if a civilization has developed without killing itself off to the point where they can visit our planet, then they must have visited at some point. And it may have not only been the Anunnaki. There could have been other races that have visited here in our ancient past and still do to this day. A little spoiler: I do hint at that in my book as well, in the graphic novel, and that is one of my theories behind what happened to the Anunnaki. But there are Vedic writings where they talk about planets in the Capricorn constellation and their gods coming from there. So there are different civilizations that thousands of years ago studied stars in a vast distance from us, and they knew about binary stars and things that we only discovered in the last 100 years or so. So I think that it's possible that other extraterrestrials were here. It's also possible that other intelligent life evolved on Earth and possibly left and came back at some point, which could be the reptilian evolving from some form of dinosaur.
Have you ever seen anything strange in the sky that you couldn't explain?
I can't. I would say I haven't been lucky enough to see something like that.
Well, what do you think when there's just thousands of reports and videos and evidence of over the last 100 years of photographs and video? What do you think when you hear about these reports? Do you connect it back to the Anunnaki? Do you or do you dismiss that as not being real?
I think that a large percent of it is not real, is possibly explainable with natural phenomenon, with secret projects the government is involved in. But then there could be a small percentage of Anunnaki that remained on Earth and are living behind the scenes. That's also in my book. I discuss that. And potentially other extraterrestrials that are visiting us from a distance and not really interacting with us, or not interacting with the majority of mankind.
Right. And which takes us straight to Mars. There's a reason why I'm asking these questions the way that I am. Last week, NASA makes this announcement of water on Mars. But we have all of the other evidence about, things on the surface of Mars. Do you think that the Anunnaki visited Mars, came back here, maybe went back to Mars? There's a connection as well.
I mean, I think that if their technology was slightly more advanced than ours, then they would have visited Mars. It's our neighbor, and there could be potential valuable elements there that they needed. They could have set up an outpost there. And there is evidence that at some point there may have been an atmosphere there, and it was more habitable than it is today.
Yeah, exactly. And when you see the evidence on Mars and on our own moon too as well, do you sit back and just go, you know what, there's just way too much evidence here. There's evidence of Mars, there's evidence on the moon. We have what we have here on Earth too as well, that the connections are obvious. And when you look at the objects that are being photographed on Mars, do you make a connection to the Anunnaki? Has there been any object on Mars that makes you see that connection?
There's a lot of anomalies. Let's put it that way. A lot of anomalies. I personally find the anomalies from the ancient past more intriguing. I think that there's a lot of speculation when we see things in a photo. It's possible, but at the same time, I don't think the evidence is great enough in the photos to say that that is definitely a man-made object or some intelligent being created it versus something that our brains are just interpreting. I definitely think it's possible, but at the same time, I try to pay attention more to the things that humans have wrote about and not currently just seeing through a photo.
And 3 questions just came in back to back, all wanting to know the same answer. What about underground bases? What about an underground Anunnaki civilization right now on Earth?
Right. And in my book, I also talk about that at some point when the majority of the Anunnaki were the ones that were here. I mean, if you think about it, they sent a group of a few hundred, let's say, that were here working and doing on a mission. Even that is tremendous. I mean, for us to send hundreds of people to Mars is tremendous. We haven't even sent one yet. So that would be a tremendous undertaking. The majority of them were still on their planet, living their life, doing what they needed to do and what they've always done. So when the mission was over and the majority of them went back, some of them stayed behind with their advanced technology, with their knowledge, and potentially had their own secret civilization running the show this whole time to this day, especially if they have their long lifespans of thousands of years. They can do things and they know things that our short lifespans wouldn't be able to handle.
And what about the Garden of Eden?
So the Garden of Eden is definitely, it's talked about by the Sumerians, it's talked about in the Old Testament, and there are similarities in other cultures around the world. This would be a potential laboratory or like a habitat that was set up for the early man, for the experimentation of the creation of these beings. And the expulsion of the Garden of Eden, and that's something in my book as well, was when one of the Anunnaki realized that humans have reached a pinnacle, a point where we are no longer primitive to them. We are similar in observation, in consciousness, and possibly even spirituality of knowing ourselves. And that's when they decided that we can no longer be kept in these habitats or used as pure slave labor, and they had to work with us in another fashion.
I'm just thumbing through this as the illustrations are remarkable. And there's an aura that is throughout the book that reminds me. I don't want to say this the wrong way. Don't take it the wrong way, but it's got the feeling of organic, almost like the movie Alien. That type of feel, that type of darkness. Where did that come from?
Right. Well, for one, I depicted the Anunnaki as having bluish skin. I wanted them to be a completely separate race than anything we know of on our planet. And the idea came from various gods depicted around the world. Mayans had one, Aztecs had him, Egyptians, Hindus, even in Japan. They've depicted certain gods with bluish skin. And that would be based on the planet they came from and the environment that they had on their planet and the sun that they had, which was the brown dwarf. So their skin would have been completely different than ours, but at the same time, the evolution was similar. So our overall look and DNA followed a similar evolving path. The Alien franchise actually took theories from the ancient astronaut theories.
Yes.
The most recent movies was completely taken from the theory, but they adapted it to their own fictional storyline. So I think that we have that one and Stargate and many other science fiction movies have all taken ideas from the ancient astronaut theory. But what I tried to do in my book was stick to the theory as much as possible and be as accurate as possible to the theory so that I can visualize and other people can visualize how it all may have taken place.
And what about the spaceship design? It's absolutely so cool to look at. Where'd you come up with that?
Yeah, the winged disc has been depicted by Sumerians, by Egyptians, and other civilizations. So I tried to depict something that was bird-like and had these wings, but at the same time was mechanical. Potentially an animal or a similar bird that the Anunnaki knew of, and they built their machines, and we're starting to do that today, create machines that are that function or look like animals or things from nature. So we're learning from nature and developing technology based on that. So I kind of followed that pattern.
And the design of I told you I was going to do this earlier. I was going to pick your brain on all of this. And what about the design of the interior of the Anunnaki temples? Where'd you get that from?
Right. So I wanted to use a Sumerian, ziggurat, and Egyptian theme, but at the same time infuse it with technology. So I kind of combined that. I wanted it to look like their walls. They don't have necessarily lighting like we have, but they have glowing walls because on their planet it may be a darker environment due to their they don't have the bright sun like we do. So that affected their skin, and that also affected everything else, their technology and their buildings and the way they lit the interiors and things like that.
Yeah, it's totally fun to look at. And the one thing that I question here, as I've read this, and you told me you've read a screenplay, why hasn't this been made into a movie?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, there was somebody who tried to make a movie about almost 10 years ago, probably now, and that person disappeared. I mean, I know a lot of people have tried to reach him and get in touch with him, and there's never been any news after that. It started, there were some clips made, and it just never took off. I don't know if the project failed or something happened in this person's life, but it was never done. I mean, there are fictional movies that touch on the subject, but that's my goal. My goal is, and that's why I did it first as a graphic novel, because it's a lot more approachable. It's something that I was able to develop without a gigantic budget that a blockbuster movie or special effects movie would need, and then take this as a storyboard for the eventual movie and series. I do hope to make more books touching on the subject and expanding into other civilizations, but the eventual goal is to have a series, either animated or live action series based on this book and other ideas I have.
Dew Sky just said, what is the origin and translation of the term Anunnaki?
Well, there's different translations. The mainstream Sumerian translators, they call it princely offspring. Sitchin translated as those who from heaven came to earth. And there have been translations that have ranged from one to the other and everything in between. Another anomaly is that the Sumerians wrote about a king's list. It's engraved on a stone, and they wrote about kings that reigned for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years each, before the Great Flood. And only after the Great Flood did that reign and the lifespans reduce to what we know of today, first a little over 100 and then back to normal human lifespans. So they spoke about all these different kings that followed one another who reigned for tens of thousands of years. In fact, the Vedic society also spoke that in the previous world, lifespans were a lot longer. So that's another anomaly that I follow and connect to the Anunnaki.
Well, I was going to ask you this earlier. I don't want this question to get away from me. There was, when it comes to debunking of Sitchin and the skeptics out there about Sitchin, one of the things that they brought up was there is no mention of gold anywhere on any Sumerian tablet, and that Sitchin got it wrong. In dealing with something that's so touchy, and especially since Sitchin isn't around to answer this, I'm going to throw that out to you. Were you able to follow up on that?
Well, first of all, I actually wrote an article about this for one of the popular websites out there, talking about theories versus theorems. So there's theorems, which are mathematical, and you can prove them on a piece of paper.
Right.
And then there are theories that have a lot of different elements that are not provable by 100%. I personally, I don't like to say that I have the absolute truth or Sitchin had the absolute truth. He may have been wrong in some of his components of his theory in his books. That doesn't negate the entire theory overall, and there is just way too many connections around the world with ancient civilizations that corroborate his theory, including scientific discoveries that came after him. So, the gold part, I personally am not a translator of Sumerian literature. I don't know where he got that portion from, but like I said, there are properties of gold that have only been discovered recently that the ancients knew about, and we've been, as humanity, has been hoarding gold forever since the first civilization. So there's definitely something to the gold. It's just whether that was their agenda, that was the Anunnaki agenda, or something else, that's yet to be determined.
What about the Anunnaki influence on Mayan culture?
Right. So the Mayans also have a flood myth that they arrived there into their lands from somewhere else. They also have a god called Chak, which was depicted with blue skin. They also have this same god carries around a circular, almost like a loop in their hand, which is common in the Sumerian culture and many others. In the Egyptian culture, there's a circular weapon that has been described by many of these ancient civilizations as a protector, as something that would protect that god from any kind of attack, and that's something that's another commonality. So there's a lot of commonalities: the flooding, the bluish skin tone, these weapons that they used. They're also recently discovered these spheres, these small spheres under a pyramid, under Mayan pyramid, which was also used in the Sumerian culture. They used these small spheres as data storage. They kind of wrote on them, and they were able to use them for various purposes.
Have you thought about a video game?
I mean, I've thought about it, but I think that I would like to do a movie, the movie first, and then video game would follow.
Wouldn't it make perfect sense? I mean, wouldn't it make perfect sense to make this a video game?
It definitely would, and I think it would be something that would be very interesting, especially if it was eventually combined with virtual reality, and you could actually explore these different civilizations and structures in a virtual world. That would be amazing.
You and we can team up. I thought of it first. Actually, not me. Cortana just tweeted. But yeah, I would. Okay. She just said, and I would just absolutely. It seems like it's already been made. In the book, it's already ready to go. Just makes perfect sense. We're going to be heading into a break here in just a minute, and we'll be taking your phone calls, 323-825-5045. Now, back to the technical aspects of the book. The care of the printing, the level of color and art and everything that was put into it was, from the very word go, was that your intention to make sure that this was the best printing, the best color, and the best artist from the word go?
Definitely. I want, like I said, I wanted the art to be realistic. I wanted people to look at this story and say, this makes sense, and I can see this happening. At the same time, I tried to make it a high quality paper. I upgraded the type of paper I used for the pages so that people appreciate the art and want to keep it and share it with friends and pass it down to their children, and something they want to keep in their home library.
Well, how do you do that? How do you find a printer that is good enough? I mean, it's a whole nother part of publishing, and especially a graphic novel of this quality. You've got to go out and find the right printer too, as well. Were you auditioning?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of work to put this book together. It took me, because it was my first project like that, and I had a lot of lessons learned. It took me about 2 years to put it together, not including the original screenplay that I wrote years before that. But I tried a few printers. I ran some copies before I actually decided on one. I've now moved on to a second printer since I originally published the book. But I'm very impressed with the printer I use now. And I'm very pleased with the quality that we've produced together.
Now, do you follow what's been going on over the last few months on the internet with the secret space program and the possibility of us diverting funds and trillions of dollars to a secret space program, and that we have off-world contact with other ET races?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something known as the black budget, which a large amount of money just goes unknown where it's spent. Maybe a lot of that goes to weapons, but there's a space plane that has been in the news that is a secret project. It's public that it's a secret project. So there's definitely, it's admitted that there are secret space projects that we just don't know about, that are not allowed to be shared with the public. There are many known respectable people in the industry that come forward and say, for example, Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who comes forward and says, we have been in touch with extraterrestrials. They've been here longer than us. And another one is Paul Hellyer, which is the former Canadian defense official. He publicly, on a regular basis to this day, talks about his knowledge and the fact that humans have been in touch with these extraterrestrials and that they're really controlling politics and everything that we see around us.
Did you hear what Bush Sr. said 2 days ago?
No, what did he say?
Yeah, he was doing a Jeb Bush fundraiser, and somebody from the audience, I don't know if it was a journalist or somebody from the audience, I have to go back and take a look, but said, what do you think about disclosure in UFOs? And his answer was, Americans cannot handle the truth.
Wow.
That was his answer. That was in the press yesterday, and I was just completely taken aback. And his people immediately responded with, well, he's 91. He's getting a little old, and they had to backpedal completely.
Right.
But that was his answer. Americans can't handle the truth.
More like slip of the tongue and speaking his mind instead of trying to cover up.
Yes, I know. Let's head into a break. We will be taking your calls when we come back. 323-825-5045. 323-825-5045. Tonight, Alex Teplish is with us. It is a full Anunnaki evening. 323-825-5045. Your calls next when we come back right after this. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit FNGinnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's FNGinnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. This is Fade to Black, an all Anunnaki evening. We haven't done this in a while. Our guest tonight is Alex Teplish. His book is In the Beginning, the Epic of the Anunnaki. Call-in number 323-825-5045. 323-825-5045. I have opened up the phone lines. You can Skype in Fade to Black and the number 14, Fade to Black 14. Alex, with Sitchin, he seems to have spanned time now, that his writings and his books today are just as strong as ever, and the interest really hasn't gone away. Why do you think that is?
I think that a lot of people are curious about what took place in ancient times. I think that religion has been a big part of our current society. People are starting to awaken and look for the truth. And his books are a tool to search for that. That doesn't mean that that has to become the new religion, or you have to take everything that's written in those books and say, this is what I believe. In fact, I like to say that I don't believe them. I find them plausible. And it's the most plausible theory that I've heard of, beyond the dogma of religion. So I think that that's what a lot of people are in pursuit of. They see the corruption of religion, the different perspectives that people are arguing. Everybody thinks they're right, and I think that people are ready for a new paradigm.
Well, and with with ancient aliens and that theory, of course, Eric von Daniken, but ancient aliens going on, 8 seasons, probably there's going to be a 9th. That the fascination is there. Is it because that now we have an easier way to research with the internet and with 300 channels on cable, that interest was always there, and it's now surfacing because we're able to go out and research and get these answers for ourselves? Is that why the fascination appears to be growing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the internet is what really made it explode, and that's really what brought it into my life. I mean, I've always had an interest into extraterrestrial theories, but discovering the ancient astronaut theory was something that, if it wasn't for the internet, it would have been difficult for me. I mean, I would have to be looking in a library and happen to come across that book. But when you're searching online, you come across this information a lot more. It's a lot more available. So I think that's what really expanded it into mainstream, and only now, since the Ancient Aliens series on TV, people are sharing it with their friends. They're seeing commercials about it, and I think that it's become more mainstream to subscribe to this theory.
Do you read Graham Hancock?
Yeah, I do. I have read his books. I actually attended his lecture also in New York about a year or two ago. I met him, and his take on the whole thing, and which I also think is another plausibility, is that there was, and this everything falls into place other than the extraterrestrial portion of it, which is that there was ancient civilizations that were more advanced than us, that fell to calamity like the flood and other situations around the world, and eventually lost a lot of the knowledge. But he hasn't ruled out, as far as I've known, and he spoke about it at his lecture as well, he hasn't ruled out that in the hundreds of thousands of years that humans have existed, that extraterrestrials may have had some influence on what took place and where some of our knowledge came from.
I wanted to ask you about Atlantis and what's your take on Atlantis, where it could have been, and its tie to the Anunnaki.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of theories of where Atlantis could have been. There's Bimini Road in the Caribbean, which is something that's underwater. I mean, more and more ancient cities are being discovered every week now that were flooded tens of thousands of years ago. 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 years ago. And so Atlantis could have been any of those places. It's really, I can't say where exactly it was because there's so many underwater cities that have been discovered and yet to be really explored fully. So, but that is definitely a civilization that has been described by various ancient civilizations. Plato described Atlantis, and it seems like there's some truth to it, that this civilization existed. They fell to calamity, possibly the Great Flood, and some of their knowledge was preserved by the people who survived. So imagine an entire island or an entire small continent is destroyed or flooded, and only a few people survive. So their priorities would not be to preserve technology, but be to survive. And whatever they could remember or preserve, they passed down to people they encountered in other parts of the world.
And Göbekli Tepe. I can't let you get out of here without talking about Göbekli Tepe. Yeah. So let's start there. Obviously it's a fascinating site. It wasn't supposed to exist. It's 7,000 years old, or 5,000, 7,000 years older than the reported dates of the Giza Plateau, and it wasn't supposed to exist, but yet there it is. How significant do you think Göbekli Tepe is?
I think it's very significant. They've only explored a very small portion of it. Less than 5% of the site has been dug up. It is over 11,000 years old, and that's the mainstream theories on how old it is. There are 3 layers in the complex of Göbekli Tepe, and I mean, the reliefs there, they depict lions and bulls and boars and all types of animals. And these structures, there's nothing else like it that is that old that we've discovered. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but we haven't discovered it. And then there's a big gap between that and the Sumerians, and really not much in between that was so immense and so impressive. And then we haven't really discovered where this came from. They call it, anything they discover now, they call it a temple or some kind of place of worship. But what were they worshiping? Were they worshiping other beings? Was worship really another form of servitude? So there's a lot of anomalies there, and I think it's something that as it's uncovered more and more, we're going to be very impressed with the information that comes out of there.
Do you see a connection with Göbekli Tepe and ancient Sumer?
I definitely see some connection as far as the way that the structures are built. They have astronomical alignment that has been found with some of these structures. I believe that these ancient civilizations built a lot of these megalithic structures to align with the stars, and that was the technology they used to predict various happenings that was related to possibly Nibiru and other solar system components. So they by studying these, by aligning them with certain stars, they knew and predicted when different ages would come about.
And what about bloodlines? When we're going back 400,000 years, 300,000 years, according to the Sumerian text and the Anunnaki, do you think the bloodlines that go into the Armenian plateau ancient Armenia too as well. Göbekli Tepe, Karahunj, and then back down through and across Persia. Do you think that these ancient bloodlines are related right back to the Anunnaki?
It's hard to say. I mean, the Anunnaki supposedly created mankind hundreds of thousands of years ago in Africa, and the first humans were dark-skinned humans. Lighter-skinned humans came about only 40,000 years ago. I believe that was a result of mixing between the first humans, with Neanderthals, which were other species, with Denisovans, and possibly the Anunnaki themselves, which started to create these various races and cultures. But the Armenian culture and their heritage definitely goes back to the cradle of civilization. A lot of firsts came from there, and there's a big tie between the ancient Armenian culture and the Sumerians.
It's a touchy subject for me, in that I feel that we are starting to realize now the Armenian influence on everything. And it's sad that it's the Kardashians that the world have to see as what is represented by the Armenian people.
Right.
But I don't say that in jest. I say that as reality. And when we look at Karahunj and we look at the Armenian Plateau and we look at how large ancient Armenia was, well, it did. It touched upon ancient Sumer. It touched right upon the Persian Empire. It went all the way to the Mediterranean, from the Caspian Sea to the Black Sea. They had three ocean fronts. You know what I mean? They weren't landlocked like they are now. And that's the part that I find significant. And where ancient Armenia, the actual ancient Armenia, not where Armenia sits now, but the original ancient Armenia, its influence was significant. And that's the part that I just feel like is being suppressed. And I know that you're touching upon it now, but I've talked about it numerous times on this show. It's a totally suppressed history.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a sad part of our society, that things get suppressed. The winners of wars and battles rewrite history and basically make themselves out to be the champions of the world and the creators. But the truth is buried more and more as the years go by.
Let's go to the phone. Say hi to Dino. Dino, say hi to Alex Teplish.
Good evening, Jimmy. Good night. Good evening, Alex.
Hi, Dino.
I had a question for you. I'm not as versed in this, but the Anunnaki, when we read about them or hear about them, there are certain names like Enki. Maybe I missed your earlier part. What are some of the Anil, Enki, a few others? And the fact that they're mentioned by name, is there any indication that these might have been a rogue group? In other words, not a whole civilization, but maybe one group, maybe a family members or an organized group from a larger population that maybe were rogues, that were doing what they did on Earth without, breaking the prime. They were breaking the prime directive, which I believe advanced civilizations must have some kind of a rule like that.
Yeah, I mean, just like we have today, we live in America. We may not agree with everything our government does, or certain politicians, or certain kings have done in the past. Or the subjects may not agree with their king, and the same thing applies to the Anunnaki. They had their civilization, a planet full of people, of their own people, and I'm sure they had different factions, just like we do, and different opinions on what to do and what not to do. But Anu, which was supposedly their king, or their ruler, he was the one who authorized the trip. Enki was one of his sons, and Enlil was another one who both eventually came to Earth. So it does seem like their leadership sanctioned the mission, and eventually, out of desperation, they created mankind.
So its history repeats itself on Earth. We've got Queen Isabella and Columbus. We've got the conquistadors. This sounds like a similar version of this. They enslaved us.
Yeah. I mean, my theory is that they didn't necessarily enslave us, but just like mankind has used other animals like cattle for farm work, that was their intention. That was their outlook on the whole thing. They didn't see us as equals until they started to upgrade the species and realized that we have a mind of our own and we're self-conscious and we're no longer like the rest of the animals. And that's when they kind of took a back seat or started to do things from behind the scenes.
And my final question, and thank you for all your knowledge, if I may ask, I keep hearing, and I've met Native Americans in the Southwest, especially the Navajo, I think, and a couple of tribes who claim to have talked with star people and met with them, and it seems like maybe, if these stories and legends are true, that these Native Americans had a more special, so we call it, relationship with the Anunnaki. So I'll take the rest of the answer off the air. Thank you.
Thank you, Dino.
Thank you. There's many different Native American cultures that have similar stories. The Hopis is one of them that I mentioned earlier. But various Native American cultures talk about star people or sky ships, boats in the sky. They even talk about how they arrived to the Americas or their ancestors by some of these sky ships.
Thank you, Dino, for the call. That opens up the phone lines, 323-825-5045, 323-825-5045. And which goes to today, the way that we look at the Anunnaki now, is it easier now to connect it to the Bible, to religions, to the other factual stuff, the other biblical accounts, and try to create a timeline?
I think that people have always had a pursuit and yearning for spirituality, to figure out the deeper meaning of life and where we came from. But at the same time, that spiritual pursuit has been combined with misunderstandings of things that we experienced in the past and could not explain with whatever language that they had, with the words that they had. So they combined that, and eventually it became a organized religion and dogma with all these rituals and some of these things that they say, just do it and don't question it. But at the same time, people are questioning it now and saying, is there really justification for everything that we've believed all this time? And some things have connections, and some things are misunderstandings.
And what about the literal translation of the tablets when it comes to hundreds of thousands of years? Now, we have the same thing in Egyptian hieroglyphs. We have it in the Vedic text. And other references, the Mayan calendar, for example, that go back hundreds of thousands of years. How literal should we take that? Do we, and take 400,000 years as a reference?
I think that we shouldn't take anything literal, but we should look for the commonalities, things that disconnected cultures all spoke about, has some root in the truth, or things that were later corroborated by science. That scientists came up with their own theories of how the Earth was created, and then it completely corroborated what Sitchin translated by the Sumerians. Or in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's talk of a book of Enoch, who's also this is a banned book, one of the banned books of the Bible, where he talks about being taught by the angels, being taken up to the heavens and being taught about various aspects of the earth and the sun, the orbits, and the number of days. He even wrote that the number of days was 365.25. I mean, it was so accurate.
Right.
The number of weeks in a year, and all this goes back to this man talking about being taken up by angels. So there was some things that were misinterpreted, or the words weren't there, but there's scientific root in it.
Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Alex Teplish.
Hi.
Who's calling?
It's Cortana.
Hi, Cortana. How are you? Say hi to Alex Teplish.
Hi, Alex. I was also, since I asked about making it a game, and I'm going to try and encourage you to go the game direction because, one, I think it would be easier to just get the message out there. I'm a game developer up here in Seattle, and all the current generation of Ancient Aliens games like Halo, Assassin's Creed, Mass Effect, they all take place in, the more modern area. It's like how the ancient aliens affect them right now. But never have we been able to go in the past and be the ancient alien or the ancient astronaut and explore that world before, catastrophe hit. What do you think about that?
I think it's very interesting, and I would love to explore the route. We should definitely get in touch offline and discuss it. It's something I would definitely want to pursue. So you could look me up on Facebook or on my website, and we could talk about the potential project like that.
Yeah, you already have the art down and everything. I see this going places.
Thank you.
All right.
Anything else, Cortana? Anything else?
No, that's it. I just want to be like, yay, video games.
Thank you so much, Cortana. I'll put you in touch with Alex. That's easy enough to do.
All right. Have a good night. Go Beckley Teppy.
Go Beckley Teppy. Yeah, I didn't tell you, Alex. Go Beckley Teppy is such a subject here on this show that the audience has turned it into a drinking game. Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah, every time Go Beckley Teppy is mentioned, they take a swig. And that's how much, and it's not, I don't want to sensationalize that, but it's how much we talk about it on this show. I think it's one of the most important discoveries like ever. It may be just as important as what's going on in Giza and what's going on in Peru and Bolivia and Guatemala and the Honduras and the Mayans and Mesoamerica. It's that important. Go Beckley Teppy wasn't supposed to exist. And I'll drive that point home until we get, till it's spoken on CNN. And can you believe, that's the thing. This is what bums me out. Nefertiti, right? Okay. It may be that we have discovered her tomb, and it may be behind a wall in King Tut's tomb. It's headline news. It's headline news on all of the mainstream media. It's being talked about, and I think it's great. And I hope we do find it, and it'll be just amazing if we find another, unmolested tomb in the Valley of the Kings, and it's Nefertiti, and she's been missing. I think that's great. No talk about Go Beckley Teppy. There's none. It's just fascinating to me how mainstream media just chooses to ignore what is going on up there in Turkey. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, Turkey has a lot of very interesting sites, and Göbekli Tepe is definitely one of the most interesting ones, considering its age. I think if you would ask most mainstream people who are not into this theory or don't listen to these types of shows or read these types of books, they would have never heard of it. Even if I asked most of my friends, what's Göbekli Tepe, they would have no idea. So it is unfortunate that such an ancient site, the most ancient site we've discovered with megaliths, and majority of people in the world have no clue that it exists.
Yeah, and this is you brought up the Ice Age a few times tonight, and this is what's amazing to me, is if the dating and if the other discovery, and if, we've got a lot of ifs here. Andrew Collins was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he said to me, Jimmy, you've said if a bunch of times tonight. Okay, well, I get that. I understand. But if we start dating some of Göbekli Tepe to 15,000 years, 16,000 years, that some of these temples there are 1,000 years apart, and suddenly we're looking at now we're smack dab in the middle of the Ice Age. We're 3,000, 4,000 years into a very difficult situation to exist in. You have to quarry those stones in a proverbial perpetual winter. You have to feed, you have to eat, you have to do all of those things in a very, very harsh environment. And now, if that is the case, now that brings up more questions than it does answers. And that's the fascinating part about Göbekli Tepe. And when we talk about how does it overlap to the Anunnaki, well, it's because there's another civilization that existed behind Göbekli Tepe, further back. And that, we talked about this earlier, everybody is taught. Well, then there's a civilization behind Göbekli Tepe, whoever built it, that taught them how to quarry, how to farm, how to eat, how to subsist, and possibly a government and a city type of situation. And that's what I'm talking about. It starts to bring up more and more questions that historians want to ignore and choose to ignore.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's especially that such immense projects. I mean, for us to even undertake something like that now would be very difficult, if not impossible in some cases. But to put together a project like that, yet survive in a perpetual winter, is amazing. It means that their motives or their agendas weren't just to survive, but there was a lot more going on at the time that people have no clue about at this point. I would love to see what kind of civilizations existed back then, and what were their daily lives like? Why were they doing all this? Why were they so motivated to create these megaliths?
I wanted to ask you about the Pope's visit last week, and also, do you think that the Vatican has knowledge of the Anunnaki that they are holding back?
Oh, yeah. I think that they have a collection of ancient artifacts that have been hidden. There are certain symbols that they've used that completely connect to the Sumerian civilization. The outfits that they wear, that the Pope wears, the pine cone representation that they use and has been used in the Vatican as well as the Sumerian civilization. There's a lot of connections there, but mainstream completely ignores that.
We're going to be up against a break. I'm going to take that now. You want to hang on for a few minutes after the break and we'll do a little overtime?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. This is what this question just came in, and I could see this lasting a while. This came in from Golu, which is, who is leading the Watchers? And by helping out the human race during the Great Flood, what type of conflict did this cause within the Anunnaki? And that is a great question. And so let's do that when we come back. This is Fade to Black tonight. Alex Teplish is with us. And the phone lines are still open, 323-825-5045. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's an all Anunnaki evening. We'll be back more with Alex Teplish right after this. Stay with us.
You are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
All right, you Fadernauts. Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52-millimeter main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net. Anywhere. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I was texting and tweeting during the commercial. And now everybody's all happy, Alex, that we chose to go into overtime. It started happening about a half hour ago. Jimmy, go overtime. Okay, well, we are. Now, the Watchers. Who is leading the Watchers, and by helping out the human race during the Great Flood, what type of conflict did this cause with the Anunnaki?
Yeah, I actually mentioned that in the book, not necessarily using the term Watchers, although I have read about that. Just like on Earth, we have different factions, different governments, different opinions. Even within the government, we have different opinions with different political parties. So I think that those that remain, the Anunnaki that remained on Earth, some are supporting some supported certain kings, and others supported other bloodlines, and those have only basically expanded since then. So there are those that are supportive of mankind, and then there are those that want to manipulate us for their own agenda. So that's kind of something that I talk about in my book as well. And you know, it's just like what we do today with other with other third world countries. What first world countries do with third world countries. We manipulate them for resources, and at the same time, some of us want to help them and bring them up to speed with our own civilization.
And did you see Noah? Did you see the movie?
No, I actually haven't seen that.
Okay, well then
They did. I know that they did depict giants in the movie.
Yeah, well, they had the Watchers were. I want to say this right. They were burnt, like burnt angels, right? They caught on fire, so they were deformed, and they looked almost. They were giants, of course, but they looked like rocks. I don't know, burnt. I know it's kind of hard to explain, but the way that it was portrayed in the movie. And to call it Noah, and then to have this extraterrestrial twist to who the Watchers were, I thought was bold. Is what I want to say. I thought it was they really took exception to what the Watchers were. But so I can't ask the question then because you hadn't seen the movie. But who do you think the Watchers were? I'll ask you that. Forget about Noah and how it was portrayed to the masses, because I thought that was interesting. You know, I think they took great liberty in that. Who do you think the Watchers actually were?
I think the Watchers would be a group that wouldn't necessarily want to control us, but are trying to leak in information so that we can develop properly into our own civilization, so that we can make our own discoveries and have our own history and not be influenced by a manipulative force. So they would potentially not want to, kind of like what one of the callers said, the Prime Directive, which is a Star Trek term. They didn't necessarily want to tell us what to do and say, this is how you have to do it, and here is the ancient history, we created you. Instead, they wanted to just let us develop on our own and continue following the natural path of evolution.
I find that fascinating. And what about the negative influence that is going on in the world today, where
this is not a religious show. It's not. We have to talk about religion because it's conspiracy. But right now, the negative influences that are going on, not only with Syria and the Middle East, but it swings around to China and Russia and the United States and our imperialism that we have been, and Russia's trying to yank its influence now. Are we at that type of biblical prophecy? Is it playing out now with archons and the watchers and ancient texts that have prophesized about this for years?
I mean, I think so many people are hoping that we're there that it's almost like people are creating it to happen. And whether that turns out to be positive or negative or a mixture of both, it's yet to be seen. And I mean, it could still take many, many years before everything unravels. There's always the next conspiracy theory or doomsday prophecy, and that doesn't come true. So I think that me personally, and I recommend that to everybody, is live optimistic. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, but do good, be a good person, and good will come your way. That's my belief.
And last week we had the culmination of a bunch of influences all arriving on September 23rd. Not only biblical, but Jewish, Islamic, and then the asteroids and everything was coming down on September 23rd. Did you prepare for that, or did you ignore September 23rd?
I can't say I ignored it, because there was a lot of things happening all at once, including the Pope arriving to the United States and New York City. Yep. So I was definitely keeping my eye on that. Luckily, nothing major happened, although there's tragedies happening every day to people. And in the Middle East, I'm sure it was very bad on that day and before and after. But luckily, nothing catastrophic across the whole world happened. And like I said, I try to keep optimistic, but I always keep my eyes open and research as much as possible to see what the explanations are, not just conspiracies and hype.
Do you? What do you think about the Anunnaki being here first? Do you think that there were other races before the Anunnaki, and when they got here, blue skin, green skin, reptilians, avians, long histories of different races being here? Were the Anunnaki first, or did they get here and see something beforehand?
I think that, well, first of all, in my book, I depict that as well. When they arrived here, there was already a natural progression of evolution. There was already hominids that evolved here naturally that were the original Earthlings. And all they did was manipulate the DNA slightly to propel them into a more advanced state, maybe even a more submissive state, so that they can use them for laborers until they finally upgraded them to a point where they made them equals, which completely ties to the book of Genesis. So I definitely think that's the way that particular path took place. But that doesn't rule out other beings from evolving here on this planet. The planet has been around for billions of years. There were many different catastrophes that rebooted the whole planet, and there may have been civilizations that we have yet to discover deep in the earth that existed millions of years ago.
Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Alex Teplish. Who's calling?
This is Michael in the Adirondacks. Hello, Jimmy.
Hi, Michael. How are you tonight? Say hi to Alex.
Hello, Alex. How are you doing?
Doing well. Hi, Michael.
Listen, I'm pretty familiar with Long Island. Stony Brook's right there by Brookhaven, isn't it?
Say that again, Michael?
Stony Brook is right there by Brookhaven Laboratory, isn't it? Anyway, I have a question.
You're talking about you're talking about Long Island, Stony Brook, the laboratory,
of
course. Yes,
I had to touch on Long Island. So we have family there. But,
I didn't catch it at first, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Alex probably doesn't know he's in the heartland of time travel and craziness.
The Long Island Project you're referring to?
Yeah, it's all right there, man.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's very close, actually.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, listen, there's always been a thread regarding the Anunnaki. I'm sure you're familiar with the term the Ajiji, and that thread connects to a underground base under Archuleta Mesa, a place called Dulce. And I was wondering if you'd care to comment on that for your listeners. And just so you know, Jimmy, you're developing quite a following up here in a remote area of the United States. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah, so the Gigi, I am familiar with that term, and that term is sometimes goes hand in hand with the Watchers, who basically observed humans develop. But I'm not familiar with the underground bases that you're referring to. I haven't come across that.
Yeah, Dulce, New Mexico. There has been a lot of evidence, a lot of people that have talked about an underground base there with extraterrestrials that we discovered that they had been there already. We were doing some drilling and up there on the mesa, boom, we drilled a little too far and discovered something there. And it's been going around for a long time. And the thought of hollow earth and something being there, you have to think about what the Anunnaki were doing. And there's been some remote viewers that have looked into this, and they were mining deep and living underground, and they were what's the word that you used with the sun and their skin color, and they were living underneath, and maybe they're still there.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. There's actually underground labyrinths that have been found, ancient labyrinths with rooms that could house thousands of people in Turkey as well,
yes.
Probably close to Göbekli Tepe, as well as other parts of the Middle East and different parts of the world, where at some point in time, thousands of people lived in these underground chambers. Why were they there? Why did they need to live so deep underground? How did they function as a society in such an environment? And what was the need for this? Must have been some warning of catastrophe, and that was their way of survival. And hopefully they did survive, and we'll find more information about it. But the labyrinths have been found, and they just need to be more research and exploration done.
Okay, I've got one question via email, and then one last Twitter question, and then we'll let you go. This is from Darkstar, but what's your theory on the revolution time of the dark star around our sun?
So Sitchin's theory is 3,600 years. I think that it varies. I think that there's a much larger cycle, and within that larger cycle there are smaller cycles that vary in time. I don't have an exact number to put to that, but I think that these megalithic structures that have solar alignment and various astronomical alignment were tools that these ancient civilizations used to predict the binary system, the interaction with it, the various destructions or effects that Earth would sustain from it. And that was their way of predicting. So when certain stars would align with their structures, it was an astronomical calendar that would predict these longer cycles and ages.
Can we expect a grand arrival from the Anunnaki, some big event?
I think that whether it's Anunnaki or another extraterrestrial race, I think it's bound to happen. Whether it happens in our lifetime, 100 years from now, that's difficult to say. In the grand scheme of things, 100 years is really nothing. We may not be alive to see it, but I think that humanity will eventually experience it.
And what is next for you? Are you doing any speaking? You mentioned another book.
Yeah, well, I recently released another book on a different topic. We didn't go much into it, but it's also a graphic novel. It's a hardcover, part graphic novel, part history book. The graphic novel portion depicts my grandfather's experience during the Holocaust in Odessa, Ukraine, during World War II. And then I go a lot deeper into the subject and summarize all the historical components that led up to that event. So that's one of my recent projects. But at this point, I'm going to be doing speaking on that subject, on that book, my first book, In the Beginning, on the Anunnaki, and I want to return and start exploring a sequel to In the Beginning that touches on other civilizations like the Vedics and other civilizations that tie into the Sumerians and the Anunnaki subject.
Absolutely fascinating show tonight, Alex. I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on and great phone calls and everything else. Thank you so much. Alex Teplish, everybody. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much for having me.
Fantastic show. Absolutely unbelievable. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back with my final thoughts right after this. This is Fade to Black. Thank you, Alex Teplish. His website is In the Beginning, the book. Go check it out. Get yourself a book. I saw all the tweets tonight about people getting books. Yeah, absolutely a fantastic read. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Today, everybody, the Fadernauts and planet Earth is vaping, and I'm very proud to announce our very own e-juice. When we were approached by City of Angels Vapor about Fade to Black e-juice, I wanted to make sure that it was the very best, and that the flavors were something that I could create myself, and we did just that. Introducing Fade to Black Fader Loops. This will take you right back to Saturday morning cartoons and your favorite bowl of Fruity Loopy cereal. Just click on the banner or go to www.coavapor.com. Enter the promo code JimmyLive. That's Jimmy, L-I-V-E, for the Fadernaut special. The website, coavapor.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
All right, you Fadernauts. Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52mm main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net anywhere. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, go Beckley Teppy.
Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Thank you, Alex Teplish. The book is In the Beginning, the Epic of the Anunnaki. Go to inthebeginningthebook.com. The links are up. You can go and check it out. And so you can understand why I'm so excited about the book is I haven't seen anything like this represented like this in a graphic novel form of such high quality. Go to the website, click on the gallery. You'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. I'm serious, man. It is cool. And that's just the wrong word to use. It sounds so unintelligent, but I have no other way to describe it. It is just so cool. And it's got this aura about it. It's got this texture about it, this thing that is just really fun to look at. And the story is right. It's correct. It's well written. It's all there. And so go check it out. Go to inthebeginningthebook.com and start with the gallery. Start right there. I want to thank everybody that was posting in Twitter. And I got some email too as well that you went and got it because you just need to. It's really cool. It's a really good book. Now, a couple of things. One, I want to touch upon Phil Schneider. I saw all the tweets coming in about that. So I'm going to address that here in just a second, my thoughts on that. But before I do, there's a press release today, and you can go check it out at the PR Newswire. It's a UBM company. You can go to prnewswire.com. And it's pretty interesting, and it's been vetted. I just wanted to make sure that before I read this in the opening news tonight that we sourced this out from a couple of different sources before I announced this, and I feel comfortable in doing so now. Okay, are you ready? Mosaic Fertilizer. That's the company. Mosaic Fertilizer, LLC, is one of the largest sellers of toxic fluoride, okay? And it's called fluorosilicic acid. And that cities around the country add to public drinking water, okay? It is described by the EPA in the consent decrees as a hazardous waste, okay? And it's produced at Mosaic's fertilizer plants. But more than 200 million Americans drink these wastes every day. Now, it has been handed down October 7th, 2015, that the company has been fined $2 billion for gross violations of Federal Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, the RCRA, and this has been reported now and out by the Fluoride Action Network, or FAN. For decades, Mosaic has been selling fluoridation chemicals to public drinking water systems across the United States, and in everything that was approved by the EPA. That benefits the polluter in a belief that it helps the teeth of the poor, according to FAN. The fine was levied on October 1st by the EPA and the United States Department of Justice. These wastes are produced at Mosaic's 6 phosphate fertilizer plants in Florida and 2 in Louisiana. Now, it's a pretty dramatic handout. It is $2 billion in fines. What does it actually mean? The press releases went out today. More on this tomorrow. Okay, there you go. I did it. I made the announcement. It's pretty. It's pretty scary. Now, you know what I don't do? First off, over at the house, all of our water is filtered. Nothing. And I'm so paranoid when I take a shower. I'm so paranoid. I won't open my mouth. I don't. I'm just freaked out about fluoride. I'm freaked out about drinking water. I just completely am. But everything that we do is filtered, and I don't know if it's enough. But I read something like this today. I don't want to put the fear in anybody. That's not what I'm about. But when something like this comes down, and the chemicals that they have been selling are byproducts and waste, it's toxic. And 200 million Americans, it just freaks me out. So I'm going to look into this. I've made the announcement. You go check it out. The company is called Mosaic Fertilizer. You can, I've done all the Google searches today after the press release came out, and it's pretty frightening. It's pretty frightening, but what does it all mean in the end? That's the question. Go and check it out. All right. Phil Schneider. Phil Schneider is a fascinating guy. And Dulcie is equally as fascinating. Now, Phil Schneider had issues, and his knowledge and his whistleblowing, it did go from Dulcie and the underground alien base and the people that were killed and the Marines and so forth. It went from that to defense systems and international politics and so forth. But the parts of his story, not story, his disclosures, his whistleblowing, as fantastical as they got, they seem to have a foundation to them. And Phil, at the time of his murder, it was reported as a suicide, but it was a murder. Phil had handicaps about him. He had, deformities and burns on his body and his hands, and he didn't have full use of his extremities. And when he was murdered in the hotel room, at that point of his life, two things were happening. One, he was physically unable to do things. I believe that there was a wheelchair in his hotel room. He was having a difficult time getting around. But he was also, the other side, there's two sides to this, he was happy. He was a happy guy. He was about to go on a speaking tour. His life was good at that point. His personal life was good. There wasn't a reason to commit suicide. Now, the parts that make all of this questionable, his suicide, was that he was whistleblowing, and he was talking about some pretty amazing things. And he was found with surgical tubing that was tied around his neck. He couldn't have done that on his own. He didn't have the physical ability to do it. You need working hands, of which he didn't have. So how did that even happen? It's because it didn't. And so when you weigh that against what he was talking about, that's the part about Phil Schneider that I find fascinating, because he was murdered and he was silenced. He's gone now. I can sit here and say that he was murdered. I don't care. But that's where you've got to go back and you've got to listen to Phil and check out the things that he was saying and start to put some weight behind it. Phil Schneider was a fascinating guy. He was a well-spoken guy. Yes, it was an incredible story that ended up going way beyond Dulcie and going into, defense contractors and international politics and money and espionage, and it was getting more and more out there. But then right when all of this was at a peak for Phil, he's murdered in a hotel room. And the autopsy was questionable. And all of that was delayed. And the way that the crime scene was investigated, because it was a crime scene, it wasn't treated that way. His story is something that got washed away. And it seems like, to me, The man won. Not Phil. I'm talking about the man. Phil was silenced. And that's the part of Phil Schneider's story. Agree with it or not, he was murdered. And there's no question about it. So if anybody, I don't have problems not questioning Phil Schneider. I did then, after he was murdered. Then you got to go back and go, man, what was he doing? All of his stuff is missing. Think about that. Thank you, Alex Teplish. Fantastic show tonight. Fantastic conversation. In the beginning, thebook.com. Faded Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro is Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication, KGRA The Planet. Tomorrow night, Fader Night. Don't forget, open lines all night long. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2015 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. Cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.